It was supposed to be the trip of a lifetime. For 18-year-old Natalee Holloway, a straight-A student from Alabama, graduation week meant one last adventure before college. Sun, sand, and celebration in Aruba, but somewhere between the flashing lights of a nightclub and the quiet, pre-dawn streets of an island paradise, she vanished. No phone, no wallet, no trace. Nearly 2 decades later, the question still echoes across the world. What happened to Natalee Holloway? Natalee Holloway was born on October 21, 1986, in Clinton, Mississippi. To those who knew her, Natalee was more than just another teenager preparing for college. She was vibrant, intelligent, and brimming with ambition. Friends described her as witty, confident, and someone who could brighten a room with just a smile. By the time she reached high school in Mountain Brook, Alabama, one of the most affluent suburbs in the state, Natalee had built a reputation as a high achiever. She was a member of the dance squad, excelled in academics, and dreamed of becoming a doctor. In fact, she'd already earned a full scholarship to the University of Alabama. Her mother, Beth Holloway, would later describe her as the girl who always did everything right. The daughter every parent dreams of raising. But on the eve of her adult life, that image-perfect future would collide with a mystery that remains unsolved to this day. Mountain Brook High School had a tradition. Each year, seniors took a celebratory trip abroad, a rite of passage. In May 2005, Natalee and 123 of her classmates boarded planes bound for Aruba, a tiny Caribbean island known for its beaches, casinos, and vibrant nightlife. For many parents, the trip felt safe. Aruba wasn't a lawless frontier. It was marketed as one happy island, popular with American tourists, and considered one of the safer vacation spots in the Caribbean. Still, some parents hesitated. They worried about sending teenagers, barely adults, to a foreign country unsupervised. But with chaperones in place and a schedule of beachside activities planned, Natalee convinced her mother it would be fine. After all, she had always been responsible. Beth Holloway would later admit that she never imagined, in her worst nightmares, that her daughter wouldn't return. On May 26, 2005, Natalee touched down in Aruba with her classmates. The group checked into the Holiday Inn near Palm Beach. For most, it was the first taste of freedom after years of structure and supervision. The atmosphere was electric. Students sprawled across the sand, snapped photos in front of turquoise waves, and filled their evenings with music, laughter, and the thrill of adulthood. Natalee, like many of her friends, embraced the experience fully. But even in paradise, things could spiral quickly. Alcohol flowed freely on the island. Clubs and casinos welcomed tourists of all ages with little oversight. Natalee's friends later admitted that during the trip, she partied hard, sometimes staying out until sunrise. For many, it was just youthful celebration. But for Natalee, it would be the setting of her last known hours. The first few days passed in a blur of beaches, excursions, and nightlife. Photos from that week show Natalee smiling under the Caribbean sun, laughing with friends, posing with tropical drinks in hand. To the casual eye, nothing seemed wrong. Yet beneath the surface, Aruba's glittering nightlife carried risks. Strangers mingled with tourists. Locals blended into the background. And in one particular nightclub, Natalee's fate would take a tragic turn. It was the last night of the trip. Seniors wanted to make it memorable. The group decided to head to a popular downtown nightclub called Carlos and Charlie's. Known for its pulsing music and open bar, it was a hotspot for tourists looking to dance the night away. Natalee joined in, dressed in a denim skirt and a stylish top. Friends later said she was happy, carefree, and excited. The perfect image of an 18-year-old ready to begin her future. But as the night wore on, Natalee became separated from some of her friends. Witnesses recall her drinking heavily more than she usually did. And as the club neared closing time, she was spotted leaving with 3 young men. Joran van der Sloot, a 17-year-old Dutch honors student living in Aruba. Deepak Kalpoe, 21, who worked at a local internet cafe. Sudhesh Kalpoe, 18, Deepak's younger brother. The 3 were locals, well known for mingling with tourists. And on that night, they became the last people to see Natalee alive. Around 1:30 a.m., security cameras caught Natalee leaving Carlos and Charlie's. She walked out, alongside Joran and the Kalpoe brothers. According to witnesses, she appeared intoxicated, leaning against Joran for balance. The group climbed into a silver Honda Civic driven by Deepak. Friends assumed Natalee was simply heading back to her hotel. After all, flights home were scheduled the next morning. But Natalee never made it back. When chaperones conducted a roll call before departure, Natalee's absence sent shockwaves through the group. Her bed at the Holiday Inn was untouched. Her packed suitcase sat neatly in her room. Her passport, phone, and belongings remained behind. Natalee Holloway had vanished, and with her disappearance, a mystery was born. One that would grip international headlines, spark endless theories, and forever change the way people thought about paradise. May 30th, 2005. While families and classmates boarded planes back to Alabama, Beth Holloway was already on the phone. She had received the call no parent ever wants. Natalee didn't get on the flight. Panic surged. Beth, accompanied by friends and relatives, chartered a private jet to Aruba. Within hours of hearing the news, she landed on the island. A mother propelled by fear and determination, Beth went straight to the Holiday Inn. She found Natalee's room exactly as it had been left. The bed untouched, the suitcase neatly packed, passports and belongings undisturbed. No signs of preparation, no sign of her daughter. For Beth, one truth became immediate and undeniable. Natalee hadn't chosen to disappear. Something had happened. Police were quickly alerted, but locals knew that missing person cases involving tourists could be complicated. Many teenagers partied late, sometimes disappearing for a night only to resurface later. But Beth wouldn't accept that explanation. She pushed investigators to act immediately. Armed with details from Natalee's friends, she gave police the first crucial lead. Natalee was last seen leaving Carlos and Charlie's with 3 young men. Within hours, Beth and her team were sitting in Joran van der Sloot's home, confronting him face to face. Joran van der Sloot wasn't a stranger in Aruba. A tall, athletic teenager, he came from a respected family. His father, Paulus, was a prominent lawyer training to become a judge. His mother was a teacher. To the outside world, Joran seemed like an overachiever, honors student, tennis player, smart, charming. But beneath that polished surface lay a darker reputation. Locals whispered that Joran was a gambler, a drinker, someone who prowled the tourist scene with friends. When questioned, Joran and the Kalpoe brothers told police the same story. Natalee left the club with them willingly. They drove her to the beach near the Marriott Hotel. After some time, Joran claimed he left her there safe and alive around 2 a.m. Sounded simple, too simple. Beth Holloway didn't believe it. Within 24 hours, Aruba transformed. Police, volunteers, and even tourists joined the hunt. Posters of Natalee's smiling face appeared everywhere. On walls, in shop windows, on car windshields. The government of Aruba, facing international scrutiny, devoted resources. The Dutch Marines scoured beaches. Divers searched waters. Helicopters scanned from above. But the island was small, 33 kilometers long, 9 kilometers wide. If Natalee was still there, she had to be somewhere. Yet no matter how far they searched, nothing surfaced. As hours turned into days, international media swarmed the island. CNN, Fox News, NBC. The disappearance of a blonde American teenager in paradise was headline gold. Reporters camped outside hotels. News crews followed Beth everywhere. Soon, the entire world was watching. For Beth Holloway, the spotlight was a double-edged sword. On one hand, it pressured authorities to act. On the other, it meant her private nightmare unfolded under public scrutiny. With little evidence, speculation ran wild. Some locals suggested Natalee had overdosed and been hidden by friends. Others whispered about human trafficking. Aruba, after all, was a hub between South America and the Caribbean. But Beth dismissed these theories. Her instincts never wavered. Joran van der Sloot knows what happened. Police soon discovered inconsistencies. Joran's timeline shifted. At first, he claimed he left Natalee at the Marriott Beach. Later, he said the Kalpoe brothers dropped him home and Natalee continued with them. Each retelling added confusion. Investigators noticed another red flag. Joran's shoes from that night were missing. He claimed he'd lost them. To police, it looked suspiciously like evidence destroyed. Despite suspicions, evidence was thin. Without a body, without forensics, Aruba's legal system faced limits. On June 9, 2005, 10 days after Natalee vanished, police arrested Joran van der Sloot and the Kalpoe brothers. For Beth, it was validation, but the relief was short-lived. After days of questioning, no confession came. No body was found. With limited evidence, the Kalpoes were released. Joran remained behind bars, but even his detention couldn't last without hard proof. Back in Alabama, Natalee's classmates held vigils. Support poured in from across the U.S. Politicians demanded answers. Even President George W. Bush's administration monitored the case closely. For Aruban authorities, the heat was suffocating. Tourism was their lifeblood, and Natalee's disappearance threatened the island's reputation. Officials wanted closure, but closure wouldn't come easily. Beth Holloway refused to stay silent. She appeared on talk shows, held press conferences, and personally distributed flyers. Tireless and outspoken, she became the face of the search. To her, Joran wasn't just a suspect. He was the key. She publicly called him a liar, a predator, a manipulator. Every time his story shifted, Beth highlighted the inconsistency. But critics accused her of interfering. Some said her pressure compromised the investigation. Others said the media circus distorted reality. Still, Beth pressed on. Her focus was unshakable. Bring Natalee home. Meanwhile, Joran thrived on attention. While in custody, he gave interviews. He changed his story again and again, sometimes claiming he left Natalee at the beach, other times saying he handed her off to strangers. Each version contradicted the last. To investigators, it looked like a game. To Beth, it was torture. But one thing was clear: Joran enjoyed the spotlight. Investigators uncovered online chat logs between Deepak Kalpoe and friends. In one, he crudely suggested Natalee might have been sexually assaulted. Later, he claimed the messages were jokes, not confessions. But rumors spread. Was this evidence of a cover-up? Or just teenage bravado? Nothing conclusive emerged. At one point, authorities drained ponds near Joran's neighborhood. Volunteers dug through landfills. Tip after tip flooded in. Psychics even offered guidance. Each lead ended the same way: nowhere. After months of detention without solid evidence, Joran was released in September 2005. Beth Holloway was devastated. For her, justice slipped further away. The world kept watching, but Natalee remained missing. Once Joran van der Sloot was released from custody in 2005, he quickly slipped back into daily life. But what startled many was how comfortable he seemed. While most suspects in a global mystery might avoid the spotlight, Joran did the opposite. He gave interviews, dozens of them. Dutch television, American media, European networks. He seemed to relish in retelling the story. But every time, the story changed. In one version, he left Natalee at the beach. In another, she wanted to see sharks, so he guided her into the water. In yet another, he said she collapsed suddenly, and he panicked. Each retelling was laced with contradictions. Each made headlines. For Beth Holloway, it wasn't just frustrating. It was cruel. In 2007, Joran published a book in Dutch titled De Zaak Natalee Holloway, The Case of Natalee Holloway. In it, he portrayed himself as a victim of media frenzy, wrongly accused and misunderstood. He denied harming Natalee. He painted Beth as obsessed. He called himself unfairly targeted. But to most readers, the book read less like a defense and more like arrogance. Here was a man whose classmate had vanished, yet he profited from the tragedy. In 2008, a Dutch journalist named Peter R. de Vries launched a sting operation. Using an undercover informant posing as Joran's friend, they secretly recorded Joran in casual conversation. What he revealed was chilling. Joran claimed that on the night of May 30th, Natalee had collapsed suddenly on the beach, perhaps due to alcohol or drugs. He said he panicked. He didn't call for help. Instead, he phoned a friend who helped him dispose of her body at sea. The footage aired on Dutch TV, shocking the world. For many, it was the confession they had been waiting for. But there was a problem. When pressed later, Joran retracted it all. He said he had lied to impress the friend. He insisted none of it was true. This became Joran's pattern. Confess, retract, change the story, repeat. Each confession dangled hope. Each retraction shattered it. To Beth, it was emotional torture. To investigators, it was a legal nightmare. Without a body, without hard forensic evidence, Aruba's system could not build a murder case. The cycle of lies seemed endless. By 2010, 5 years had passed. Beth Holloway had no answers, no closure. Her daughter's case was cold, but Joran hadn't disappeared. He resurfaced again, this time with a shocking proposition. Through intermediaries, Joran reached out to Beth's attorney. He claimed he knew exactly where Natalee's body was buried. He said he was willing to share the location for a price. The demand, $250,000, $25,000 upfront, the rest after the body was recovered. Beth's attorney informed the FBI. Together, they set up a sting operation. Money was wired. Conversations were recorded. In one meeting, Joran accepted $25,000 in cash. He even led the attorney to a location, claiming Natalee was buried beneath a house foundation. But investigators quickly learned the location was false. Another lie. Still, the extortion was real. The FBI had proof. Days later, before U.S. prosecutors could move, Joran vanished. He fled Aruba, flew to Peru, and checked into a casino hotel in Lima. There, his path collided with another young woman, one whose fate would finally expose Joran for who he truly was. On May 30th, 2010, exactly 5 years to the day since Natalee's disappearance, Joran Vander Sloot was seen with 21-year-old Stephany Flores, a Peruvian student from a prominent family. Security cameras captured them together at a casino, then walking into Joran's hotel room. Hours later, Joran left alone. Stephany's body was found in that hotel room. She had been brutally beaten. Her neck showed signs of strangulation. Unlike the Holloway case, this time there was no mystery, no ambiguity, no vanishing into thin air. The evidence was undeniable. Joran was arrested while trying to flee across the Chilean border. In custody, he confessed. He said he killed Stephany in a fit of rage after she discovered details about Natalee Holloway on his laptop. The confession was graphic, detailed, and irrefutable. For many, it confirmed what Beth Holloway had believed all along. Joran was dangerous. In 2012, Joran was convicted of Stephany Flores' murder. He was sentenced to 28 years in prison in Peru. Later, the sentence was extended due to drug smuggling inside the prison. For the Flores family, justice came, though no sentence could undo their loss. For Beth Holloway, it was bittersweet. The man she believed killed her daughter was finally behind bars, but Natalee's fate remained unresolved. In 2023, Joran was temporarily extradited to the United States to face federal extortion charges. Related to Beth, he pleaded guilty. For the first time in court, he admitted that Natalee had died on the night of May 30th, 2005. He claimed he had killed her after she refused his advances, then disposed of her body It was the closest thing to a confession Beth would ever hear. Standing in court, Beth Holloway said, "Today, I can tell you with certainty after 18 years, Natalee's case is solved. As far as I'm concerned, it's over. Joran van der Sloot is guilty." For a grieving mother, it was not closure, but it was an answer. Natalee's disappearance scarred Aruba. Tourism dropped sharply in the years following 2005. Many Americans boycotted the island, accusing authorities of incompetence or corruption. Though Aruba's officials tried to repair the image, the Holloway case became permanently tied to its reputation. The story of Natalee Holloway became one of the most followed true crime cases in modern history. Documentaries, books, and TV specials revisited the events again and again. For many, the case symbolized the fear of letting a child travel abroad. For others, it was the story of privilege, arrogance, and a justice system that failed. Beth Holloway transformed her grief into advocacy. She established the Natalee Holloway Resource Center, aimed at helping families of missing persons abroad. Her tireless work turned personal tragedy into a lifeline for others. Even with Joran's courtroom admission, one question remains. Where is Natalee's body? To this day, despite countless searches, the sea and sands of Aruba have kept their secret. Some believe Joran's final confession is only another lie, crafted to suit his needs. Others believe Natalee's remains lie beneath the ocean, lost forever. What is undeniable is the pain left behind. A daughter vanished, a family scarred, a mystery that captured the world. And in the silence of unanswered questions, one mother's voice still echoes, "I will never stop searching." In May 2005, when Natalee disappeared, the 24-hour news cycle was already in full swing. Cable networks thrived on high-drama cases: Scott Peterson, Lacey Peterson, the Michael Jackson trial. Natalee's case fit perfectly into this new ecosystem. A young, beautiful American girl, an exotic vacation island, a mystery with no body, no closure. From CNN to Fox News to Nancy Grace's nightly show, Aruba was on every screen. Helicopters buzzed over beaches. Reporters camped outside the Holiday Inn. Every development, an arrest, a rumor, a new statement from Beth, became breaking news. But with the wall-to-wall coverage came criticism. Commentators noted that cases involving young, white, middle-class women dominated media cycles, while cases involving women of color often went ignored. It sparked a debate. Why did Natalee's story gain global traction, while thousands of other disappearances barely made local papers? For Beth, the debate didn't erase the urgency. Her daughter was missing. She wanted answers. But the case also became a lightning rod for broader conversations about race, privilege, and media bias. Beth Holloway became a household name. Her voice, her face, her relentless advocacy were broadcast worldwide. She stood in front of cameras daily, pleading, demanding, crying. Some criticized her intensity. Others admired her strength. But no one could ignore her. For millions of viewers, Natalee's story wasn't just about a missing girl. It became about a mother's refusal to stay silent. Psychologists who studied Joran's interviews noted his charisma. He smiled easily, joked with interviewers, spoke multiple languages. But beneath the charm, they saw troubling patterns. Narcissism. His focus was often on how the case affected him, not Natalee. Manipulation. He told different stories depending on his audience. Lack of remorse. He laughed about serious accusations. Some experts suggested he exhibited traits of a sociopath, someone who could lie without guilt and manipulate without hesitation. One striking example, Joran once claimed he sold Natalee into human trafficking. Later, he admitted he made it up. Why tell such a lie? To some, it was attention-seeking. To others, it was a way to maintain control. Each lie pulled focus back to him. Each lie prolonged his relevance. For Beth and investigators, it was torment. Journalists who interviewed Joran came away with the same impression. He enjoyed the game. Every confession dangled hope. Every retraction crushed it. It wasn't just about escaping justice. It was about power. Power over the Holloway family. Power over the media. Power over the truth. Beth Holloway refused to let Natalee's case fade. When Aruba's investigation stalled, she lobbied the U.S. government. When new suspects emerged, she flew to the island herself. When rumors spread, she went on national television to counter them. Her advocacy was raw, emotional, and tireless. Beth founded the Natalee Holloway Resource Center in 2010. Its mission: to help families of missing persons abroad. The center provided guidance on navigating foreign legal systems, handling media attention, and dealing with emotional trauma. Beth turned personal tragedy into a resource for others. In 2023, when Joran was extradited to the United States for extortion charges, Beth stood in court face-to-face with the man she believed killed her daughter. For 18 years, she had fought for this moment. When Joran admitted responsibility for Natalee's death, Beth didn't break. She didn't rage. She stood tall. As far as I'm concerned, it's over. Justice has been served. Her resilience left a lasting impression on everyone in that courtroom. Over the years, countless searches were launched. Divers scoured the waters off Aruba. Sonar scans mapped the ocean floor. Private teams funded by donations combed the beaches. Every tip, every clue, every rumor sparked another mission. Some said Natalee's remains were dumped at sea. Others claimed she was buried under concrete foundations. A fisherman reported seeing suspicious activity near a landfill. Each lead ended the same: nothing found. The Caribbean is vast. Its currents are strong. If Natalee's body was placed in the sea, as Joran once suggested, it may never be recovered. For Beth, that reality was crushing. Without a body, she couldn't bring Natalee home. Without remains, closure was impossible. And yet, she never stopped hoping. Even today, investigators still revisit the case. With new technology, ground-penetrating radar, advanced sonar, DNA testing, there's always the possibility of breakthroughs. Some experts believe the case could still yield answers. Until then, the ocean keeps its secret. The Holloway case dealt a heavy blow to Aruba's image. Tourism declined. The island's justice system faced criticism. Though Aruba worked to repair its reputation, the shadow of Natalee's disappearance lingers. For many Americans, Aruba became synonymous with danger. The case also fueled the rise of true crime as global entertainment. TV specials, podcasts, and YouTube documentaries dissected every angle. Natalee's story wasn't just news. It became a cultural touchstone. For families of travelers, the case was a wake-up call. Be cautious abroad. Understand foreign legal systems. Recognize that justice isn't universal. For law enforcement, it underscored the difficulty of prosecuting crimes without bodies or direct evidence. And for the public, it was a reminder of how quickly joy can turn into tragedy. 18 years later, Natalee Holloway's story remains unfinished. We know more about Joran van der Sloot. We know his capacity for violence proven in Peru. With Stephany Flores, we know he exploited a grieving family for money. We know he finally admitted to killing Natalee. But without her body, without the physical proof, a part of the mystery will always remain. For Beth Holloway, that mystery is both a wound and a testament to her daughter's memory. Natalee was more than a headline, more than a case. She was a daughter, a friend, a young woman with dreams of becoming a doctor. And though her story became one of the world's most famous mysteries, for Beth, it will always be simple. Natalee was my girl, and she deserved better. May 30th, 2005. For Natalee and her classmates from Mountain Brook High School, the graduation trip was the highlight of their young lives. They had spent the week exploring Aruba, snorkeling, visiting beaches, dancing in nightclubs. For many, it was their first taste of freedom away from parents. The final night carried a bittersweet energy. Tomorrow, they would return to Alabama. But tonight, they wanted to celebrate one last time. Natalee, wearing a light top and jeans, joined her friends at the Carlos and Charlie's nightclub in Oranjestad. The music pulsed, the drinks flowed, and laughter filled the air. Friends later recalled Natalee as relaxed but excited that evening. She wasn't a big drinker, but she danced, mingled, and talked with strangers. Around closing time, 1 a.m., several witnesses saw her leave the club with Joran Vander, Sloot, and two Surinamese brothers, Deepak and Satish Kalpoe. Her friends assumed she was heading back to the Holiday Inn. After all, Natalee was independent, friendly, and known for her confidence. But that was the last time any of them saw her alive. Natalee entered the silver Honda driven by Deepak Kalpoe. Satish sat in the front. Joran was in the back with Natalee. The car pulled away from the crowded nightclub street, heading toward the dark coastline. What happened next depends on whose story you believe. Version 1. He left Natalee on the beach near the Marriott after consensual intimacy. Version 2. She collapsed and became unresponsive, and he panicked. Version 3. He handed her body to a friend who disposed of it at sea. Version 4. He sold her into human trafficking. Version 5. 2023 confession. Natalee resisted his advances. He grew angry, and in a violent outburst, he struck and killed her. Every version contradicted the last, but in each, Natalee never made it home. The next morning, when the bus prepared to take the Mountain Brook students to the airport, Natalee was missing. Her luggage, passport, and plane ticket were still in her room. At first, her friends thought she overslept. But when hotel staff couldn't find her, panic set in. Calls were made. Teachers searched the grounds. By the time Beth Holloway was contacted, the truth was undeniable. Natalee was gone. For Natalee's classmates, the trauma was immediate. Many later spoke about survivors' guilt, the torment of leaving Aruba without her, replaying that night, wondering if they should have stopped her from getting in the car. Some faced backlash in the media. Critics accused them of withholding details. Others unfairly suggested they bore responsibility. The truth was simpler and sadder. They were teenagers, unprepared for the nightmare unfolding. Around them, some suggested Natalee died from alcohol or drugs and that Joran panicked. But no evidence of drugs was ever found in her system because her body was never recovered. Others believe Joran intended harm from the beginning, using Natalee's trust to lure her away. Rumors of trafficking rings in the Caribbean fueled speculation that Natalee was sold. Joran once claimed this only to retract it. The most enduring theory, that Joran disposed of her body at sea, making recovery nearly impossible. None have been proven. Each remains possible. Beth Holloway flew to Aruba within hours of hearing the news. She stormed into police stations, demanded to speak with Joran, and begged for search parties to begin. Her intensity made headlines. Some admired her fire. Others criticized her for being confrontational. But Beth had one mission: find my daughter. Beth's life split into two worlds. Alabama, where she tried to maintain some sense of normalcy. Aruba, where she chased every lead, spoke to every witness, and stared down officials she believed were hiding the truth. Her relentless presence kept the case alive, but it also wore her down. Sleep was scarce. Hope and despair cycled daily. In 2008, a hidden camera sting caught Joran telling a friend he had been with Natalee when she collapsed, and he disposed of her body at sea. But later, he claimed he fabricated the story to impress the friend. Police couldn't act. The confession wasn't admissible. In 2010, Joran attempted to extort Beth Holloway, demanding $250,000 for information on Natalee's remains. The FBI recorded the exchange. Joran received $25,000 upfront but never delivered. This crime eventually led to his extradition to the U.S. years later. That same year, Joran murdered Stephany Flores in Peru. The brutality of the killing convinced many that Natalee's fate had been similar. In 2023, during his U.S. trial for extortion, Joran finally admitted he killed Natalee. According to his statement, he struck her after she resisted his advances. He claimed to have hidden her body near a construction site. Whether his confession is fully true remains debated. But for Beth, it was the closest thing to closure she would ever receive. After nearly 2 decades, Beth Holloway stood before cameras and said, "As far as I'm concerned, it's over. Justice has been served." Her words weren't about forgiving Joran. They were about reclaiming her life from the endless cycle of lies. Natalee's story isn't just tragedy. It's also resilience. Beth's advocacy has helped other families facing the nightmare of missing loved ones abroad. The Natalee Holloway Resource Center remains a beacon for those in need. Friends remember Natalee as a dedicated student, a caring friend, a young woman with dreams of becoming a doctor. She wasn't just the missing girl in Aruba. She was Natalee, vibrant, full of life, taken too soon. Natalee Holloway's disappearance reshaped how the world views travel, justice, and tragedy. It revealed the failings of an island's justice system. It showed the unbreakable strength of a mother's love. And it became one of the most infamous unsolved cases in history. Nearly 2 decades later, one truth remains unshakable. Natalee's story still matters.